So good afternoon, everyone. I am Ronak Devan from Aonex Digital. Firstly, thank you so much for joining us today. It means a lot that you've taken out some valuable time to attend this webinar. So this webinar is co-hosted by AWS and Aonex. Aonex took its first strides in the IT industry in 2015. And with a very tenure and a very versatile team, we've achieved the competency of being the advanced tier partner of AWS, as well as the gold partner of SAP. So as you may know, the topic for today's webinar is why should you migrate your SAP workloads on AWS? And we have Mr. Indranil Dev from CK Birla with us, who will be taking us through his experience and his journey of using AWS, followed by Mr. Saurav Sarkar from AWS, who will be sharing his insights on why are people choosing AWS to host their SAP workloads. Our final speaker of the day would be Mr. Sharad Raina from Aonex, who will be going through the value proposition Aonex has to offer. And we'll be ending the webinar with a Q&A session. So before we proceed, I would just like to take you through a few hygiene points. Those of you who have joined from the web browser, unfortunately, you won't be able to unmute yourselves. So if you have any questions, please feel free to add it in the chat box. Those of you who have joined us today from either a web app or a mobile app, you can raise your hand using the go-to feature. I can unmute you one at a time, and you can and feel free to ask questions to the relevant speaker. If you have any sort of questions during the webinar while the speaker is speaking, please feel free to add it in the chat box or the Q&A box, and we will take up your questions in the Q&A session. So our first speaker of the day is Mr. Indranil Dev. He's the head of corporate IT at CK Birla Hospitals. With over 2 decades of experience, he's worked with several big names such as Wipro, Balaji Group, and Thapar Group. Without any further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Indranil to take us through his journey and his experience of using AWS. Sorry for the technical issues. Mr. Indranil, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, now I think, okay, it is muted by the organization, it was saying. Hi, Ronak, hope I'm audible clearly.
Yes, sir, you're clear, loud and clear. Good to go.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Hi, as Ronak already said, this is Indranil. So I'm around 25 years working in the field of IT. So I have already worked in probably all IT domains, but healthcare. So I am new to healthcare, though I've completed on a 1.5 years in healthcare now, but still I find myself to be very new to the system. In terms of healthcare, what I realized within last one and a half years is this industry has an immense potential to grow in terms of technology enhancement. It is one of the most challenging IT sector now to work, I believe, considering the global scenario, and it has an immense potential in case of technology advancement, which can be which will be the future roadmap with this sector. Now, coming to the digital transformation, but before that, I thought I should give the audience a brief about the this group. This is CK Birla Hospitals group. Basically consists of 3 hospitals. 2 hospitals are located in Kolkata and 1 at Jaipur. Out of that, 2 Jaipur and 1 Kolkata unit is a multi-speciality hospital. Out of that, the Kolkata multi-speciality hospital is the first multi-speciality private hospital in Kolkata. It is almost 50 plus years old, and the second unit is a single speciality cardiology hospital. I think single speciality cardiology hospital in eastern part of the countries, this is the only one. As we say that it's a 50 years old hospital, so it now what we believe, to cope up with the industry standards, we need to change completely in terms of IT roadmap is concerned. So now we are in the digital transformation journey. So in terms of digital transformation, in case of hospital, it can be majorly divided into 3 parts. One will be my back office, which is for us, it's running on SAP. One is, as we call, HIS, Hospital Information System. This is basically the application or the portal which takes care of all possible hospital operation. And the third one is the imaging part. We call it PACS, Picture Archival Communication System. It's basically the all your tests, films in case of CT, in case of MRI, in case of urology, X-ray. Those things got stored and reporting happened and archival happened for future usage. So these are 3 main pillars, though we have some additional, but these 3 are the 3 main pillars in terms of any hospital operation system. Now, if we start off with the first part, in case of PACS, what we are doing is, maybe we are the first group in Eastern region to use PACS over cloud, on AWS cloud to be very specific, because the trend or the industry standard was to store the images locally. So there, storing an image locally, size are huge, handling, managing in terms of during COVID time, there was a resource crunch which has happened to the all or possible domain. So we are the first maybe to upload the entire data over AWS, and currently we are fine tuning that. Still we have one small part locally available, but during our transformation roadmap we will also shift that. Now, to connect that, why we are in future also we are completely going to cloud environment or AWS environment, is the HIS, which is the backbone of any hospital operation system. So now we are in a digital transformation journey in terms of HIS revamping, where what we are doing, we are completely going in a SaaS model in case of HIS usage. Presently, it is again in-house, handled by a local team or a vendor. Now we are also transforming that to the AWS environment. Now coming to my presentation, so this I have already briefed you that about the hospital. Currently we are also rated #1 in terms of few department in case of our multi-speciality unit. In case of cardiology, now we are ranked 2. These are our visions and missions. Now moving forward, so again, in case of digital transformation, we also move to cloud, considering few other scenarios also. Required hardware upgrade due to performance issues. So the entire, as it's a 50 years old organization, so you can understand the hardware requirement or hardware change, for that the capex investment. So instead of doing that, we thought we should move to the cloud environment. Just to give an example, in case of our back office software, which is SAP, currently we are running. So SAP, we are now moving SAP completely to the cloud environment, because all the SAP hardware which are present in-house is on the end of life state. So we have to change the entire all possible HANA boxes. So that is a huge capex investment for us. So instead of that, we thought to explore the cloud environment, and we are now slowly, but within this year, we have a target to move the entire bunch to AWS. Now, talking about AWS, it is giving us a cost-effective solution. It is also giving us high scalability. And one more important feature is what we face now. The previous architecture here was to, in terms of connectivity, the connectivity was happening in case of Jaipur also, and my other unit, everything was coming and terminating to one main multi-speciality hospital which is present in Kolkata. Now we can understand there was failure possibilities, because if any link down, then the accessibility to the application or the back office SAP was lost. So going to cloud environment giving me the flexibility, which from where every unit is connecting now separately to the same environment, so that the failure is also coming down as a future roadmap, and we can overcome the problem what we are facing today. So in terms of high availability, it is giving me the flexibility moving to cloud. Yeah, we are upgrading, migrating the HANA now. So you can see the footfalls in our OPDs. So last 2 months, almost 20,000. So in terms of this many data, what we are generating on a everyday basis or a month basis is, we are facing challenges every day to handle that. So going to a cloud environment like AWS giving me the flexibility to store the data, archive the data, and also it can be a cost effective way, because if you manage the data properly, first you go to store to S3, then you maybe move to Glacier, giving me a cost effective solutions also. And as I said, the hospital information system, which is HIS, we are also in process of migrating that to AWS. So these are some AWS solutions what we are using, or a few components with what we are using to configure our entire environment, which is helping me for SAP configuration, which is helping me for my new HIS configuration, and the packs, the other part what I have said earlier, it's already there. Yes, as I said, that it is giving me on a headache free in terms of licenses. My maintenance cost is drastically coming down. My manpower requirement is coming down. Though the performance increase is happening. The availability now in terms of packs, which is already there in AWS, is much higher than before. Before we faced many challenges when it was there in my on-prem setup. These are the other points which I already discussed, that no direct capex involvement at the beginning, utilizing in OPEX mode, which is giving the organization flexibility, because we have also suffered in terms of business last 1 or 2 years. So now we are in a state to maintain this, and we are going ahead with the digital transformation. Another important thing, as a digital transformation journey, you also require a proper support, a proper partner. So Aonix, we are using them as our partner, a reliable and a trusted partner. So that's all from my side. So if you have any question, I'm free to respond to it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Indranil, for your great insights. We really appreciate on giving your inputs on the journey you've had up to now. Before we move on, I would just like to launch a poll. We try to make these sessions interactive and engaging for our audiences. So, for the next 10 seconds, you'll see this poll on your screen. It would be great if you could just answer it. Right. Thank you so much for your responses. Let's move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Mr. Saurabh Sarkar from AWS. He's the principal SAP specialist and has been working with AWS for 3 years and counting. He has also worked with SAP for 8 years before this. So I would now like to invite him to talk about why people are choosing AWS as their preferred solution to migrate their SAP workloads.
Okay, thank you, Ronak. I hope I'm clearly audible to everybody.
Yes, Saurabh, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I think, Indranil, that was great insights from your end in terms of trying to put in perspective that the work that you've been doing with AWS, and we thank you for your partnership as well, and hope your digital transformation becomes successful and you become one of the pioneers in what you're attempting to do, right? So the way Indranil put this forward, I'll probably take the next 25 to 30 minutes to kind of talk about what we are doing in the SAP world. SAP, like you know, is a mission critical application. What we are helping customers, how we are helping customers migrate these workloads onto AWS. A quick intro, I think, while Ronak has mentioned this, been with AWS for a little under 3 years. I lead the overall SAP and AWS practice and have been working with actually SAP customers for almost close to 13 years now. So been extensively part of the ecosystem and seen the journey across various customers. So what I'd like to share today with you is kind of talk through 5 major points. Like we want to share with you our experience and understanding how customers have adopted the AWS platform for SAP workloads. Talk about giving you some confidence and perspective into how we continue to offer the world's broadest portfolio of services across for this mission critical workload. Talk about the reliability, flexibility, security aspects we bring to this workload. I would also want to talk about, spend a few minutes on talking to you about the construct that SAP today talks about, which is Rise on AWS for customers. AWS is one of the preferred hyperscalers, having done significant number of deals in the country since the launch of this offering as well. And then probably leave with you some thoughts on how, if you were to evaluate and start your journey with us, how do you want to go ahead and do this? So how does SAP kind of fit into this overall journey, right? And I think this is a question that we get from most of our customers, right? Is this a workload that's something that you should consider taking to the cloud? The answer to that is yes. And already, if you would see at the numbers, I think 80%, more than 80% of the customers are using some form of SAP workload onto the cloud, right? And globally, we have more than 5,000 customers who have moved some form of SAP workload to the cloud. In India, we have quite a few hundreds. And the interesting fact is, since the pandemic and towards the end of 2019 onwards, we've actually seen a year-on-year kind of 20% plus growth in customers actually organically moving SAP workloads into the cloud. So that's been one of the most interesting statistics that we have observed. And on the back of it, how do we help customers? So if I were to talk about the highlights on how do we help customers with is, one is definitely customers look forward to us to from an the confidence part in terms of should they be looking at a platform like AWS to migrate their workloads, right? So we kind of help them give that perspective as to from a reliability, flexibility, cost aspect as to whether this platform is the right platform of choice for them. The second is a lot of customers as well as come back to and have asked us that, look, we know we run SAP, we have been running SAP for years, some of them for decades, and we do understand there is a lot of complex operational elements that is involved. Can you help us simplify this? So I'm going to spend some time talking to you about you today as to the kind of automation we have built in kind of ensuring some of these things. Then customers come and talk to us about, okay, if I now have the SAP workload on us, how do I go and do other elements as a part of the digital transformation like Indranil talked about, right? SAP is not the only application that's going to sit in your landscape of enterprise applications. It would have interactions and integrations with the various other applications from your industry. It will differ from industry to industry. How do you go about doing that? What about my analytics? How do I go to get to leverage IoT, etc.? So in and around the digital core, what can we do? So I'll give you a few examples around that. And last but not the least, how much more can you experiment with a cloud provider like AWS in testing your business cases with certain pilots and edge use cases as well? So if I were to step back and say, how does a journey for an SAP customer work out in AWS, right? First of all, predominantly they focus on the key aspect, which is I talked about, is how do I ensure that my mission critical application runs very stable way in a focused manner supporting my business? How do I improve my business desired SLAs of availability, etc.? So we focus on the migrate elements, which is designing right, getting the right architecture in place and helping them migrate. And then what we do is we move to a phase where we look at can we optimize, right? Things on accelerating rollouts, ensuring that you have the right cost elements in place. What more can you do to kind of simplify your operations, leverage some of our automation, is what we typically see these customers going into the optimize and accelerate phase. And then what they choose to do is, once they've done that, is looking to extend the value of running SAP on AWS by using a lot of AWS's native services to kind of run them as well, right? So they focus on some of these elements very strongly, and that's where I'm going to talk about a few examples and customers, how they have done it. And then it begins is the continuous wheel of reinvention, where you continue focusing on some of these elements in terms of what more can be done to kind of support your business elements. So jumping right into the first section. So what have we been doing with customers and how has our journey been with SAP in this world, right? So if I were to sum up, I know it's a busy slide. There's a lot of milestones and elements in the slide, but at a high level, we've been engaged. We have been working together for 13 years, more than since maybe another cloud provider who did not even exist, right? So it all started with SAP starting to use some of AWS's services for using their development environments to start coming out with the first set of infrastructure certified for HANA way back in 2011. And it was in those days I was used to be with SAP, and I think AWS was a pioneer in kind of helping customers consume that technology in the cloud. And today, if you notice towards the work that we have been doing in 2020, 2021, is how much can we more bring in automation? How can we ensure that some of the aspects of reusability, the ability to deploy some of these setups with minimal human intervention, with least risk, least cost of failure, how can we go and do that? I'll talk about something which we launched way back in 2021 is the SAP AWS Launch Wizard, which kind of actually automates, is a wizard-based interface of setting up a complete SAP environment in just a couple of hours, right? So imagine the amount of time, energy, and efforts you would save in doing that. And what have we seen customers across leverage, right? We've seen customers across industries leverage this, right? If you look at consumer goods customers to manufacturing customers to even public sector customers, we've seen a broad-based adoption of them moving SAP workloads onto the cloud, and to the point that it's not restricted to any particular industry, which means the customers have found enough learnings, have found enough reasons, business cases to move to the cloud, right? So if you are in a particular industry that you feel, am I the first person to move my workloads into the cloud? The answer to that should be no. And we would be happy to help you with enough number of references, perspectives of a customer of your similar size, complexity, level of support, or the kind of application, whether it is ECC or S4HANA, having done that, get that information across to you to give you that comfort that even you could come up with your own business case and approach and do this migration. While I'll not talk much about the global customers, I want to definitely take a few moments to talk about some of the large marquee customers here in India. whether it is C8 who's been using this for more than 3 years now, or Jubilant Foodworks, or a lot of entities within Dalmia Group. We also have a significant number of financial services customers who, for example, Edelweiss runs their core insurance policy generation system on us. Godrej Housing Finance set up their business, and S4HANA became one of the backbones to it. To various other customers, including Greenply, to LTI, to Aditya Builder Group. We have other consumer products customers like Haldiram's have more who have been using it for a long period of time. We also have customers like DTDC or Tata Click who use the SAP Hybris platforms for various of their aspects like front-end transformation or billing systems, etc. as well, which means the number of workloads or the type of workloads that's deployed on AWS ranges from both ECC to S4HANA to Suite on HANA, you name it. We'll probably have enough and more combinations to talk about and give you comfort on, right? This also means that we have the learnings from so many of these customers and can help create the right roadmap for you based on your scenario if you're considering a journey, right? And in that aspect, one of our partners like Aonix would be definitely be helpful to help you with the perspective of building the right business case and approach for you to do that journey. The work that we have been doing with SAP does not stop at only certifying instances for them to run SAP onto AWS, right? We definitely work with them very closely with Rise on SAP. I will talk about that in details, but to highlight that a lot of SAP's own innovation platforms, either whether it's the Data Warehouse Cloud or the SAP Analytics Cloud, or some of you might know the travel and expense SaaS solution like Concur, etc. They run on AWS, right? Which means SAP themselves look forward to AWS as one of the most mission critical cloud providers to support their global operations, right? Which means if they can trust us for running such large scale deployments of SaaS and other elements and even choose us for the innovation development, that's there's a reason why you could also leverage and look to us to trust you with running your SAP workloads onto us. And while I talk in details about that, some of the recent innovations, right? For example, we got various new set of instances come up in the last few months. It's been exciting few months with the new instances on AMD, Intel for HANA, new sizing instances that have got launched. We have also released native integration of data from SAP onto the AWS services, which means your ability to now bring in data from SAP to leverage some of the use cases around data analytics becomes so much more easier, to helping you ensure that you run your setup in the right manner, looking at your pillars of resilience, cost of operations, the security and other elements. We actually came up with an SAP specific version of well sought after AWS as well architected review, which means tomorrow, if you were to deploy an SAP on AWS workload on us, we could come and help you, get you guidance in terms of how is it operating, do you need to take any interventions, etc. as well, right? We also launched a specific SAP on AWS training courses, and there's a certification now available for people to have an SAP on AWS certification, which means if you're looking for some of your teams to get upskilled, and if they were to kind of run this workload on the cloud, there is already a path for that as well. So in a snapshot, these are some of the recent innovation and announcements that have happened for the last couple of quarters. I thought I'll kind of sum that up from you as well. The other points that I think we get a lot of questions about, how secure is cloud? Is it secure enough for a mission critical application like SAP, because that pretty much runs my business? So what is AWS doing in this field, right? So outside of, if you were to go and check up on our websites, you'll find a host and series of certifications that we go and do, both at the platform level and also specific to various compliances that certain countries may have, whether it is GDPR in Europe, or if you are in a regulated industry like pharma, which needs the support for something which is called goods and process compliance. The AWS platform goes and does that, which means it is ready for you to support all your compliance and security needs that are needed, right? The other elements are that, for example, a lot of our new systems and instances are on the basis of what we call as the Nitro hypervisor, which is a series of hardware level hypervisor components that actually give you more performance and reduced attack surface, because the cards which are proprietary are used to ensure that you get a much more resilient instance, And this kind of helps ensure that your security postures is improved even when you're deploying mission critical applications like this. And one of the other points that you'll probably be aware that the US government runs a specific cloud called NS2, where they host their own SAP workloads for the government environments. That's completely deployed on AWS. And there are customers like US Navy who actually runs a 24 terabyte of SAP instance on the cloud with us, right? And from that perspective, if I were to sum all of that up, that's not the end of it. I think Gartner has recognized AWS's ability to kind of offer the scalability, the ability to kind of meet its customers' requirements and lead with a vision for the 11th straight year now, right? And we are kind of happy that our customers continue to place that level of trust, and we hope we'll be able to do that with you as well. One of the things that I think which is more important and customers talk to us about is their ability to be wherever they are in their journey is where they want to be, right? So we at AWS believe that the customer decides wherever they want to do, and we'd be willing to support them on their journey in whichever phase manner they want to undertake their transformation. So we will meet you in your journey wherever you are. And whether it means for you to move your ECC systems or your S/4HANA systems to Suite on HANA or to RISE, we're happy to support you in whichever element of the journey that you want to undertake. Right? So we are not restricting ourselves to that. We have a plethora of support across various databases to various forms of it, which means you get the flexibility to choose how you want to have your SAP roadmap onto the cloud, and you do that at your own pace and at supporting your business imperatives. We'll be there to support you with the right structures, both in terms of technology and commercials, to ensure that this transformation is successful for you. And in that course of migration or transformation, we'll also want to partner with you to look at what more use cases or cloud-enabled initiatives that we can support, whether it could be around employee engagement or connected devices, or if you're in a factory environment, what can we do around smart factories or R&D, etc. Right? So there are a plethora of use cases that customers do, and you could pretty much look forward to them as well. So let's now look at what are the broader set of cloud services that can help actually undertake some of these modernization elements that I talked about. One perspective that we do hear a lot from our customers is that, hey, in my journey, once I've moved SAP onto the cloud, what's next for me, right? How do I enable and get more visibility into the data that I'm using? How can I deliver some of the analytics use cases to AI ML, to aspects around bringing some of my SAP non-SAP data taken together, is something that we consistently hear from our customers. To that effect, I think that's where I think the prowess of the cloud comes in, and the ability to kind of experiment on some of these things is what cloud will take you ahead in the journey. So in this aspect, for example, let's look at a architecture or more of a schema. If I were to say, on your left, you would see on the screen is the various SAP applications probably today you might be using. Some of them, a combination of them, etc., depending on whether they are industry-based solutions, whether they are on-prem solutions, whether it's ERP solutions, etc. You would consider bringing some amount of element of data together on an SAP Analytics platform. It could be the SAP Analytics Cloud, it could be SAP Business Objects or SAP Data Warehouse Cloud, or it could even be sitting in your RISE environment as well. What you could potentially do is you could marry all of that to AWS's own services around analytics and AI ML, whether it's the data warehouse products on Redshift, to bringing just the data onto cloud, or even using various of our ETL methods to move the data to our SageMaker platform for AI ML, etc. You could pretty much do that. These the movement, and there are integrations and architectures available to help you facilitate that. The point that I'm trying to say that you could create a proper data strategy where your SAP data exists from not only your SaaS applications, but your hosted on and provider like AWS to marrying it with non-SAP data. And to that extent, I think one of the innovations that I talked about earlier on is something which we called the Amazon App Flow, which is an OData connector that's been created to natively move data from your SAP ERP or BW for use with AWS services. and all of that can be set up in just few clicks. This is aimed at you kind of creating or deploying a use case on AWS where you need some elements of SAP data to come in, and then that could come and sit in your S3, which is our storage layer, or it can come and sit into a data warehouse. And thereafter, you can decide what level of processing you want to do, whether it is in SageMaker or you want to do a serverless application that needs to come up to based on an event, right? Or you could use any of the other analytics providers as well. So Amazon Airflow Data Connector will actually help you take that step forward in your journey of trying to use your SAP data combined with other data elements and create more insights to support your use cases that your business might be wanting. Now, this is fundamentally different. If you were to try and do this in an on-prem world, you would have to do this through a combination of various products, which would take you immense amount of time to kind of even set this up. This for you on AWS could be set up as pilot and things in just a few clicks. I kind of wanted to talk about a customer who's done something similar. This is from a manufacturer in India who have not only migrated their S4HANA onto AWS, but they have a host of other applications, like they have a distributor management system which they use from Botree. They use Salesforce for some of the dealer elements, and they also have a lot of images and unstructured information that comes in, right? And what they have done is they've combined all of that to ensure that they have an unified insights to pricing analytics to give a lot of downstream use cases for the sales and marketing to kind of do that. And this is kind of ties down to the curve that I talked about, is where you're a little ahead on your journey, where you want to extend the services around your SAP footprint on AWS to ensure that you're getting the best and most from the data elements as well. And if you take this to a step forward, a lot of SAP customers of ours have also this need to look at how do they want to forecast some of their business elements. So we have also come out with a framework where you can probably use Amazon Forecast, right? This is a technology that evolved that we used to use ourselves in our own e-commerce business as a tool that is available for you to kind of seek data, get data from SAP, non-SAP, parameterize it, and then create a forecast out of it, right? You can automatically create your own custom ML models, or you can leverage some of the standard algorithms. And the point is, even if the output that you generate can also be sent back to your ERP to kind of compare against the actual sales versus projections, right? So you are able to not only do forecast much simpler way, but this is again an example of using an Amazon or AWS service to kind of combine with your SAP data to get more support more business elements. So this is an example of innovation that I also thought I will kind of share with you today. And this is there are various other customers who have done things with respect to leveraging some of these AWS services in connection. Some have even gone on to ensure that they have a reduced carbon footprint. To someone have like a delivery hero has actually used some of our AI/ML models to ensure that they have a faster close with the serverless invoice generation or data extraction that they want to do, right? One of our retailers, Zalando, who are also an S4HANA on AWS customer, they use a data lake and the S4HANA efficiently to ensure that they have the right customer experiences data, to store data, to pause data, to everything coming in, and ensure they have the right insights to support their business processes during sale or any other time as well. So there are enough and more innovation outcomes as well. Happy to get you across more details and sit down and talk to you about your use cases and business imperatives to support that. Having said and look forward in terms of how things happen, what are the possibilities? One of the questions that everybody still comes back and asks is, hey, all that is fine. I do understand that with cloud, there is an immense amount of possibility to do a lot of things. But how going to ensure that my workload, which is SAP, which is core, which runs my backbone, will seamlessly run without any disruption of any sort, right? And for that, you need the backing of one of the world's, you will have the backing of the largest and greatest infrastructures, which ensures that the design in which we have set up our own data centers and regions ensures that you get the highest level of availabilities, right? You know probably that we call our presence as regions, and each region has at least 2 or 3 availability zones, with each availability zone being actually a cluster of 1 or more data centers, right? This kind of ensures that you have a resilient architecture, and in the eventuality of a loss of service, you have the nearest availability zone, which is also connected by low latency, single-digit milli-latency links to ensure that you can have the right high availability architectures to ensure all the reliability that you need in supporting and deploying some of the mission critical applications like SAP. We also have our next region, Hyderabad, coming up towards mid of this year. We already have a presence in Mumbai across 3 availability zones, and with Hyderabad, we'll have another one in 2022. One of the other elements that I think is one of the innovations that SAP AWS did for not only for SAP, but it's also available for a lot of other services as well, is what we call as the Nitro system, which is our underlying platform as an hypervisor for the latest instances, right? This is based on at a hardware level where we have cards which go and take away a lot of the hypervisor overloads that typically would otherwise be taken by the software layer within the instances to ensure that you have a more performance, your ability to improve your security posture. And this also ensures that you're able to use some of these instances seamlessly with any of the other AWS services, which means the Nitro system is a differentiator for us and powers the innovation and the flexibility going forward from that. And in addition to that, I think I talked about there's been a plethora of announcements around new instances. For example, we have announced AMD instances that are now certified for SAP at the application layer, which give you an immense amount of SAPs, right? They have a 35% better compute performance for their last generation, better pricing, and their ability to access storage and provide immense gigabytes of network bandwidth accessibility as well, right? And they can start with 2 core systems to even 192 core systems, offering support from an 8 GB memory to a 768 GB of memory. So covering most of your application server loads at a much more improved price levels, leveraging the AMD EPYC architecture. Similarly, we launched based on Ice Lake, the new generation of HANA instances that can also be used right from 16 GB memory to a TB. And then we came up with the X2 set of instances, right, which today not only gives us the other sizing, this is a refresh from the previous generation, but we also now have intermediate sizing, which means we now have a 1.5 TB and a 3 TB instance as well, where earlier there used to be only a 1 TB and then there used to be a 2, and then between 2 there used to be no 3 but 4. So now you have intermediate size instances, which means if you're moving from a 1 TB to 2 TB, you may not need to do so. You may just move to a 1.5 TB that supports your data and HANA requirements, right? So getting you better price performance and your ability to scale up in small steps instead of trying to make leaps and bounds. Coming to the second last section, which I talked about, is how do we help you kind of automate some of these elements and simplify the work that you put in on a day-to-day basis to support your SAP systems. We all know that when you're deploying an SAP system, you have to do a lot of work to ensure that your infrastructure, OS level and SAP level applications and everything comes together before you rightly make that available to your users, right? And what we have come up with a free service called AWS Launch Wizard, which is nothing but a wizard-based approach to deploy all the elements you need to stand up an SAP system, which means it has all the elements as a packaged as a best practice, whether it's at the server or a storage level or at a VPC or a network level. You just got to pick and choose the components, and that will automatically go and deploy them in your AWS account. So much so that you can actually set up hardware level, instance level, HA between whether you want to do it at an RHEL or you want a SUSE, all at the click of a few wizard elements, and it'll be up and doing. We've even got a step forward to ensure that all you got to do is if you put the binaries of the SAP software in a particular area, it will go and even deploy your S4HANA systems, applications, BW4HANA or NetWare components there as well, which means you can actually have a system ready to set up in a matter of couple of hours versus weeks that might actually have been taken to you to do this. Imagine if you're doing projects where you need to do an S4HANA upgrade, or you have compliance systems, or you have project systems, you could all be setting this up with almost minimal manual intervention, all at the click of a button and all available through the Launch Wizard service. Similarly, we have automated backups using the AWS backend agent and take backups into our highly durable S3 storage. And all you got to do is you can now set up even archival and other elements of data tidying as well, all through the launch wizard. And last but not the least, I talked about the AWS well-architected framework. We have now come up with a specific one for SAP to ensure that we support you on the post-go live or pre-go live checks to ensure have they been rightly deployed? Are there the right elements of high availability in place? Are you optimized on your storage? Are you ensuring that you have the right backup policies in place? All of that can be done through this guidance called SAP Lens for AWS well-architected framework, available directly through AWS and partners, and is again a free service available for you to leverage. Well, I now wanted to spend maybe another, given that how we are doing it on maybe on 5 minutes to talk about that what we're hearing with SAP is why is what we call as is known as the rise with SAP. Yes, that's a motion that customers today have a choice of deploying and contracting with SAP as one single contract where they run their SAP systems onto the cloud, and AWS is one of the cloud providers supporting that. And till date, we have had the maximum number of wins and customers who have actually chosen AWS to deploy that. And the reason why customers are looking at RISE, whether it's business transformation or their choice of infrastructure, they want the cloud-enabled systems to be more responsive. So what RISE does, it brings in elements of business transformation, the infrastructural elements, and a modern infrastructure all together. And this is from an SAP Insider survey, which can also help you meet your goals as well. And to that point, that while you will have the choice and of other hyperscalers as well to be chosen as a part of the RISE with SAP, some of the elements that are differentiated from an AWS standpoint is, for example, I talked about our availability zone architecture with almost single millisecond data latency between two of the ability zones, gives us the ability to come up with a short range DR and a zero RPO, which really helps you bring down the business downtime costs and is currently not offered by any of the other hyperscalers. And of course, the benefits of the Nitro platform in terms of getting more price performance per instance is also available to you. The other elements is definitely the BTP platforms. AWS today is used to deploy the maximum number of BTP platforms across the globe, right? We have 10 regions compared to 7 regions combined with the other hyperscalers taken together, right? And not only that, Indranil talked about this, that you could always end up with having various applications hosted. So today, if you were to do a RISE on AWS, and if you have a lot of other applications migrated onto an AWS customer account, you could easily peer them together, make them talk to each other, make them sit on the same availability zone, etc., and seamlessly make them talk to each other. So all those technical elements to ensure that you have a single pane of glass for all your applications and resources hosted together is available for you to do that, right? And I think one of the elements is definitely, which I talked about earlier as well, that SAP continues to choose AWS as the innovation platform for not only the services like analytics, etc., but all the new BTP services that are also launched. For example, 24 of them were launched in the second half of 2021. 21 of them were only launched on AWS first and not on other cloud providers, which means we provide that stability and capability to ensure that even SAP's own innovation platforms are powered by that, right? So please reach out to us if you are considering migrating or moving your workloads with the RISE construct. We'll be happy to support you with all the right needed elements from both reliability, performance, and the partner ecosystem element as well, so that we kind of go ahead and support you on that transformation as well. So now that brings me to the last phase, maybe the last couple of minutes is, while you've understood and hopefully I've been able to give you a perspective on how customers are leveraging the platform, what benefits you derive, what could be your future journey, what more services you can use together with the SAP elements. I think the important element still remains is how do you start this, right? And we do have a proven method and model for going about doing this, which involves as what we call as the migration methodology, which is largely and broadly divided into 3 phases, right? The first phase is an assess phase, where we undertake a discovery, do an initial TCO assessment to understand where your workloads are and how you're going about it. What do you run today? What are your challenges, etc. Once we've done that, we come into what is called as the mobilize phase, where we do a technical validation with you on a grounds of architecture that we create for you, a cloud native architecture, talk to you about your migration plan, partners like Ionix will get involved. They will help validate some of the assumptions and understand how some of the integrations, etc., need to work in your new environments, and they will help us put together a foolproof migration plan and also suggest how you should be going about doing that, phasing, etc. And then lastly, we try to conclude on a business case so that you can go back to your management and say, this is, I've done the right elements of study, I've gone and looked at what are the options and how should I now start and migrate. And the last and the third phase is definitely the migrate and modernize, where we might undertake the migration and look at some of the modernization elements of how you get more value out of the data. And in doing so, we want to ensure that you realize all the benefits of the cloud platform, and some of the things like the SAP lens for well-architected review that I talked about will come into real relevance to ensure that you are actually realizing some of the benefits and there are no elements of risk that we are not taking steps to cover them for. Right. So how do you go about doing that? Reach out to us for the complimentary workshops to do an assessment of your landscape, your challenges, bring up to us the transformation elements. Will help you with do that. You could also reach out to Ionix to do that. They in turn will reach out to us, and we can also support with bringing our own AWS SAP experts to support in this journey. And if you need any or more information, you could always look up aws.amazon.com/SAP. We'll have a plethora of case studies, documentation, use cases, blogs of various elements of how to use AWS's other services with that of SAP, etc., is all available for you to refer to. Right. With that, back to you, Ronak. That was all that I wanted to cover today. Hope you find some of these insights really helpful, and happy to take on questions and seek feedback from you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Saurabh, for your great insights. I'm sure that was helpful for our audience. We now have another poll before we move on. So another 10 seconds, if you could just take out another 10 seconds to answer that would be great. And then we can move on to our next speaker. Thank you for your responses, everyone. We'll now move on to the last speaker of the day. Our last speaker of the day is Mr. Sharad Raina. He's the Business Development Manager from Aonix, and he'll be taking us through the value proposition of Aonix Digital.
I hope, Ronak, you can see my screen. Can you confirm this for me?
Sharad, you're audible. We can see you, but we can't see your screen.
Let me just figure it out. Give me a second. I think it should be okay now.
Yes, Sharad, you can proceed. We can now see your screen.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ronak, for the introduction, and thank you, Saurav, for the great insight on today's topic. Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Sharad Raina. Allow me to give you an introduction about myself. So, I have been working with Aonix Digital Solutions as a business development manager for the past 2 years, and I have had total experience of 10 years into software solution selling. In my past experience, I have been involved into solution selling around ERPs like SAP, CRM solutions CRM solutions like Salesforce, and in cloud solutions like AWS. So let's begin with our introduction to Unix Digital. So to give you a perspective about Unix Digital, we are basically an IT consulting company into the field of enterprise business applications and cloud. As far as our focus area is concerned, we are partners with SAP and AWS. With AWS, we are currently advanced tier partner, and with SAP, we are at gold level partnership. So we utilize these our partnership with our OEMs to give the best solutions, whatever the market is in need of. As far as the AWS is concerned, we are the AWS System Manager Delivery Partner, which basically resonates with experience, with our experience and the deep understanding of utilizing various services of the AWS and delivering the benefits to the customer. As far as our history is concerned, as far as I can say our journey is concerned, we are basically from the lineage of a multinational company, which is Ashapura Group. And with our organization, we have an experience of around 5 years into the market. And in this 5 years, we have grown along with our customers by providing them innovative, high-tech, and future-proof solutions. As far as the geographical is concerned, we are basically geographically based out of as a HO in Mumbai, and then we have our development center, which is based out of Gujarat, and we have our offices in north in Delhi, in NCR, and in Kolkata city in the east. Recently, this year, we started with our Dubai operations as well in the Dubai city. Apart from that, we are not restricting ourselves to the geographies we are not reachable. So we service customer from pan India and from other subcontinent areas as well. To put some numbers into perspective, here we have currently 30 plus active customer, I would say, which we are serving right now. And to give you a profile of these customers, so these customers are basically spread across 5 different countries, and these customers are out of all these customers, 7 are the listed Indian companies, which we can say. So as far as the work that we have done with our customers, so we have completed on the AWS side more than 20 plus enterprise level deployment and migrations for our customers, which is into their SAP systems. So we have done SAP migrations for their workload as a primary data center to the AWS, and as well as setting up the SAP DR for our customers. So our goal is not only to give them the setup and migration services. We all, as an AWS partner, also ensure to be with their journey of AWS as well with our managed services. So we provide them support and services along with the journey that they are doing with the AWS service. So as far as strength is concerned, it is our team. So we are a family of 100 plus people who are working together to provide best and valuable services and solutions to our customers and prospects. Apart from that, we together we can kind of carry an experience of 5 lakh of hours, I would say, in terms of consulting, which basically gives us kind of a desired capability to deliver the right and effective solutions to our customers. So as you can see, there are some of the cloud offerings that we have mentioned. So globally, if we speak AWS is the most comprehensive and broadly adopted cloud platform services, and AWS offers more than 200 plus fully functioning services in its platform. So some of the services, if I can include, are on the technology or on the infra side, are basically the compute, storage, or the database, and some of them on the emerging technologies can be listed as artificial intelligence, machine learning, data lakes, analytics, or IoT. So using all these services, it basically becomes much easier and it becomes cost effective for our customers to migrate from their existing workloads to the AWS infra. And we utilize as a AWS advanced tier partner, we utilize these services to enable the same for our customers. So as you can see here, the consulting and migration to infrastructure as a service and platform as a service are some of the things that we do apart from cloud application development, testing, and implementation. So this includes the services that we provide. So apart from setting up the services for our customer, we also give them the support services, which I mentioned. So to be with their journey. So we ensure our best practices to give them reduce operational overheads and risk with their AWS journey. And our AWS managed services, which basically provides full life cycle service to provide to provision, run, and basically to kind of support them with their infrastructure as well. Some of the activities that we do along with the support activities are monitoring their system on a daily basis, sending them reports for that, patch management, security management, and automating some of the services, or automating some of the common repetitive processes into their system. So these are some of the activities which we kind of do and support our customer as a managed service provider. So now to give you a glimpse of what we do apart from the as a AWS setup and a managed service partner. So we have done some developments, side by side developments for our customers, which are more or less the SAP customers. So some of them you can see over here. So as you can see here, some of the services that we provide are basically automatic waybridge management. These are some of the services that we have given. And then some of them are listed as Signex, which is basically a bulk digital signing solution from bulk digital signing solution, which can be utilized on SAP. Then we have developed dealer and distribution portal management, and same goes with the supplier portal, which have been developed using the AWS services, various AWS services. Smart Factory is another one of the products that we have developed, basically, which basically which wherein we basically utilize various technologies like IoT and machine learning to pull the data from the packaging and production units, and which can be further basically utilized to give productive use cases like productive maintenance and others. So these are some of the side-by-side developments that we have done for our existing customers, and all these developments that we have executed. Okay, so these developments are basically fully in seamless and sync with the SAP system by integrating them with the existing SAP system. Moving on to the next part of the presentation. So here we'll be going through some of the case studies, and which is around the work that we have done for our customer base. So to begin with, this is the case study of basically setting up a DR for one of our customer, which is Bilosa. So Bilosa Industries, you must be aware about. So they are a giant in the textile industry. They have been in the market since 100 years, and the pain point basically for them was to having a mitigation system for their primary data center, so in case of any kind of a risk or in case of any shutdown of their primary DC. They had faced this issue previously and had burned their hands as well on the data loss front. So they picked us and wanted us a solution around that. So the solution that we proposed and we finally delivered to them was based on setting up a DR site on AWS. So what we use basically is a small EC2 instances, small size EC2 instances, which basically help them in kind of maintaining or optimizing the cost as well, which we use during the HSR applications. Apart from that, we use AWS Lambda scripts, which basically helps to automate things. So using the Lambda scripts, we basically kind of set up scripts where it was easier to scale up automatically at the time of any DR drill or in case of any mishap at their primary data center. So apart from that, another issue that they were facing was of the remote location of their DC. So because of that, it was kind of difficult to kind of do the replication for the first phase. But we use the technologies that AWS provides, services that AWS gives us. So Snowball was used for that to kind of get the data from their primary to the AWS data center. Apart from that, later we connected their DC with the later we connected the primary data center with the DR setup using the AWS Direct Connect solution. So this is how basically we enabled them, and now they are 100% safe as far as the DR and data loss is concerned. Here is a QR code for the scanning purpose if you want to go through the entire detail case study on it. So you can scan it here. I'll just move to the next case study of ours. So this case study is around the activity of moving SAP workloads on AWS. So this was done for Ashapura Group. So Ashapura is a leading multi-mineral solution provider. So they have very global footprint. So that means they have operations across different continents. Okay. So the two pain point areas for them was basically elasticity and high availability. Elasticity, which is there for every growing company. So every growing company faces this challenge of elasticity when they need to increase their compute storage, and it is always a challenge for any growing company. The second thing was high availability because of they're spread across different continents. They had employees working from different time zones, so high availability was always a concern for them. So utilizing the AWS architecture and AWS services, they were able to get the solutions on these two pain points successfully. It's been 4 years they have successfully been using AWS services right now, and in these 4 years they have gained so much. So the impact of the digital transformation, you can see it over here that they have increased the overall performance by 40%. And again, they gained a reduction of the TCO using the EC2 instances, and now it is very much scalable. At any point of time they need any extra space or any extra compute, they can scale it at any point of time within minutes. So this is how they digitally transform themselves by moving or migrating to their SAP workloads on the AWS. Eonix as a partner has been helping to manage their landscape as well as their SAP users, which are more than 2,000 in number as of now. So this is the third and last case study that we'll be going through today. So this is again one of the use case where basically we use the AWS technologies to modernize an ordering process system for one of our customers. So Gopal Namkeen, you must all be aware about. It's an oldest and leading Indian brand into Indian namkeen and snacks. So they are based out of Rajkot in Gujarat. So the pain areas basically for them was they already had a system in place, a data portal system in place, but that data portal application that they were using, the architecture was having a traditional hosting and it was not much optimized for speed. So in cases of peak days where dealers and distributors basically used to punch in a lot of orders, so it used to become a little sluggish as the transactions were growing. Okay, because of that, they wanted a solution which is more reliable in terms of the scalability and as well as a better user experience that they were expecting for their dealers. So our solution gave them exactly the same. So we delivered a modern dealer order portal system for them, which basically was fully integrated with their existing SAP system, and then it was scalable, secure, and highly available at any point of time, whether it was a peak day for them or not. So some of the few technologies, services that we utilize from AWS to fulfill this solution, so are mentioned here. So as you can see, EC2 was used for the servers, and then we utilize IoT Greengrass to capture the data from the production and the packaging line and get it in a real time. And then we use some automated scripts using the SAP AWS Lambda. DynamoDB was used as a backend database to manage the things. So this was about the case studies that we presented. Here is a list of some of our customers that we have been providing services to. So as you can see, they are customers from diverse portfolios. So we have customers like Tata Communication, which are on the telecom side. Then we have customers like CK Birla Hospital, which are from the hospital vertical. And then we have customers like ITT, Cementation, and Sadbhav Engineering, which are from the infrastructure segment. We have customers like Gopal Snacks from the consumer products. We have customers D Decor and Pilosa from the textile vertical. KLT is one of our customers, which is from the automotive industry. So we have in these 5 years expanded ourselves in each and every vertical. So manufacturing being the core is there, and every vertical, every other vertical apart from manufacturing also we are there for our customer as a service provider, whether it is SAP or AWS. So, and then I would like to conclude by saying if you find us the right fit to be a partner of you in digital transformation, you can reach out to me. You can scan the code for my contact details. Thank you all. Thank you all, and thank you all for the time and attention that you given to us. And apart from that, if you have any query, you can come back to us anytime. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Sharad, for taking us through the value proposition Aonix has to offer. Next up, we have two more polls. It would be great if you could take out 10 seconds each to answer them. I'll be launching them shortly. Thank you for your answers. Now, the last poll for the day, and then we can move on to the Q&A session. So I'll be displaying this for another 10 seconds. Thank you so much for your answers. Thank you so much for your attention today. We can now move on to the Q&A session. Before I start the Q&A session, I would just like to remind you about a few hygiene points. You can feel free to raise your hands and I'll unmute you if you have joined through the mobile or the desktop app, or else please feel free to put it in the chat box or the Q&A box and I'll take up the question to the relevant speaker. So if you have any questions, the floor is now open. Feel free to ask. So if anyone doesn't have any questions, we can end today's webinar. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. We really appreciate you taking out the time out of your busy schedules. And we hope we get an opportunity to host you again soon. Hope you have a great day ahead.